To understand electricity, we need to start with its most fundamental concept, electric charge. So, let us start by first understanding what charge is. Well, charge is one of the fundamental and intrinsic properties of matter. Intrinsic property means something which is naturally present, or a built-in property. Because matter consists of atoms, and atoms consist of electrons, protons, and neutrons, this property of charge exists in matter and is as intrinsic as the presence of these atomic particles. The elementary charge, which is the fundamental unit of charge carried by a single electron or proton, is denoted by the letter E. By convention, we call the electron's charge negative and the proton's charge positive. This choice was historical and somewhat arbitrary. So, the charge on an electron is written as minus E, and the charge on a proton is written as plus E. When the number of electrons equals the number of protons in matter, it is said to be neutral, carrying no net charge. But when this balance is disturbed, it is said to be charged. For example, when you rub a balloon on your hair, electrons transfer from your hair to the balloon. The balloon becomes negatively charged because it now has extra electrons, while your hair becomes positively charged because it has fewer electrons than protons. This imbalance results when materials with different electron-holding strengths come into contact. Some materials, like rubber and vinyl, tend to grab electrons eagerly, while others, like glass, hair, and fur, hold them more loosely. When two different materials make very close contact, the electron clouds of atoms from these different materials can overlap. If one material wants the electrons more eagerly than the other, electrons will jump from the weaker holding material to the stronger one. This happens because electrons naturally move from higher energy states to lower energy states. That's the direction that minimizes the system's total energy. Think of it like water flowing downhill. Materials with loosely held electrons have those electrons at relatively high energy levels. Materials eager for electrons offer lower energy states. When they touch, electrons naturally fall from the high-energy material to the low-energy one, like balls rolling from a high shelf to the ground floor. This is exactly what happens when different materials become charged because of rubbing materials together, as in the case of rubbing a glass rod with wool or silk. This same principle applies beyond just rubbing materials. In a battery, for instance, electrons at the anode have higher energy than they would at the cathode, so they naturally want to flow through the circuit to reach those lower energy states. The terminology can be confusing because we often say materials lose or gain electrons, but the underlying principle is simple. Electrons spontaneously move to minimize their energy, flowing from high energy states to low energy states, just like any other physical system seeking equilibrium. The material that gains electrons becomes negatively charged. The material that loses electrons becomes positively charged, not because it gained protons, but simply because it now has fewer electrons than protons. So, remember these important points. Point number 1. Charge is one of the fundamental and intrinsic properties of matter. Point number 2. The elementary charge, which is the fundamental unit of charge carried by a single electron or proton, is denoted by the letter E. Point number 3. By convention, we call the electron's charge negative and write it as minus E, and the proton's charge positive and write it as plus E. Point number 4. The material with excess electrons is said to be negatively charged. The material with lesser number of electrons than protons is said to be positively charged. When both numbers are equal, the material is said to be neutral. For more such intuitive videos, press like button, comment, and subscribe to Intuition.